want to I think I just stopped. Ugh. Hello, Ella. I don't know my 6-digit code for whatever it wants me to know. Indicate. Facebook, here, more. Code generator and help. Code generator and help.
Hello, Jacob.
Hello, Ingrid. Oh, here we go. Text me. Go away. I'm just making sure we can go live on Facebook so people see your pretty face.
I didn't know we were going to go live on Facebook.
That's okay. We're not going to go live. Then I didn't say anything then. They don't have to know anything. It's all secret. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Oh, Bo's here. Marlon, are you okay there? You look like you're hiding in some sort of like a beep. Are you okay?
I know. Take off your hood. Let's see your face. You're smiling.
Hi, guys.
Okay, so now it should work. Are we going live on Facebook? I don't know. Let's see. I've learned so much through COVID. I've learned so much I didn't know I didn't want to know. Like how to work Zoom, how to go live on Facebook, how to do syndications for different social media platforms, how to make sure my lighting doesn't show my dark circles under my eye by adding a pink light to my chandelier. Yes, I'm not sunburned.
You guys want to see my Zoom box? This is what I use to elevate my computer. It's very, very fancy.
I've got this. That's exactly right. I've got my filing cabinet right there.
That way you have like it's kind of like eye level and people aren't looking up your nose.
That's always
Unless
awful.
you're Bo and you just have a picture of yourself, at the beach.
Which is probably better because if he's not in just a picture, it's very, very disturbing. He's incredibly good looking, so we don't want to see his face. I'm just saying.
Rude.
Carlos shares her brilliance.
Another trick is right next to your computer and you get a text, you're not looking down or away. It's kind of like
You've been doing a lot of these.
I'm just here to give you tips.
I have mine, like I literally hang it right over my camera so I can see what's going on, because when I go live anyway. Here we are, we're going live. Let's see what happens. Now, have you also noticed that if you go live on Firefox, it's never quite the same quality as going live on Chrome? Anyone else? Just me?
I'm Melissa.
I'm glad I have
an Apple user. I'm so sorry.
I'm also an Apple user. Thank you.
So you Safari.
I use it on my phone. I don't really like it on my laptop. I don't know why. I know I'm a brat. Okay, let me move this over here, and we're going to start this recording in a second. And apparently it is recording this entire time. Wonderful. Makes it so easy. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. How you doing, everybody? I don't hear you.
Pretty good.
Act like it's your first time being on one of my calls. Y'all know about it. One moment, please. We're back. I'm not used to having children. It's something I'm a new parent, Ingrid, but parent, like, quote, because obviously I didn't do this. So anyway, so welcome to our investor party, Ingrid.
Thank you.
Did I lose you?
Your hair looks good.
Thank you. So, welcome to the party. So what this is this is a community of like-minded investors, and we all work together to get deals, and we're building our businesses, and we're pivoting today, and we're just making sure everything happens. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been very, very valuable, and now we're all just starting to pivot our businesses. And what I wanted you to do is come on and talk about the value of having the right real estate broker on your team. So, are you guys ready to get started? What was that?
That's a yes.
Oh, good. Lord, y'all pretend like you don't know what's going on. I know you do. I know it. Okay, so Ingrid, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and why I love you so much?
Oh, well, I don't know why you love me so much, but I'm very fond of you. I want to first thank everybody for having me on your Zoom call. I'm here to answer any questions and give any help that I can to assist you in answering those questions. I know that you're part of this investor group with Jacob, and he's invited me here, and I'm very flattered and honored to be here. So,
Well, Ingrid, you've been in real estate for how long now? 500, 600 years? I don't know. You tell me.
yeah, you tell.
So, because you've been doing this since before the last correction, correct?
I've been in real estate sales since 2001. So, yeah, right after September 11th, I got my license. It was a very strange time in real estate. As you know, there was a big boom, in 2005, 6, and kind of like it hit rock bottom in 2010 in August. We saw a lot of differences in our real estate market at that time. We went from everybody being able to get a loan at 100% financing to people losing their homes to foreclosures, and short sales became a big thing. With that being said, during that time, the agents, a lot of agents were getting their licenses during that time. A lot of them left the business during that time as well because they were unable to shift into what the market was dictating during that time. So since then, I've been a real estate broker since 2004, I believe. And I've led offices throughout the Tri-County area, all the way from Hollywood, Miami, West Dade, Pembroke Pines, and Boca and Delray Beach. So I have experience in the Tri-County area. And I've also served for the Miami Association of Realtors for 5 years on arbitration panels, mediation, and also as a Florida director for Florida State Director for the Florida Realtors Association, as well as a governor for the board of Miami. So
okay, so just so you know, I knew you were always amazing. I didn't even know half that stuff, by the way.
Okay, well,
I feel like
I never talk about myself. It's boring.
You never do talk about yourself. That's kind of funny. You always talk about your kids. You talk about your husband, who, by the way, her husband's also a broker in our Fort Lauderdale office. And Ingrid is just, for an agent, when you go and you look for a broker to hang your license with, so for those of you who aren't licensed, you get your real estate license, which means you go and sit in a classroom for a period of time, and they teach you how to pass the state exam. Passing your real estate license, just like any other license, really is just a standard that you have to maintain to pass an exam to show that you have more knowledge than the average bear in that market. But just like when you get your driver's license, it doesn't mean you know how to drive, right? So like you get your license, you're like, now what do I do with this thing? I worked so hard for it. How do you make this happen, right? So the first thing you have to do is you have to hang it with a broker. So in Florida, you have to be an agent for at least 2 years to become a licensed real estate broker. Now you can handle people's money. You can open escrow accounts, you have a higher level of fiduciary responsibility, but now you can have a team beneath you and everything that goes with that. Some people, like myself, become broker associates. Some people stay real estate sales associates, and some people, like Ingrid, become the big cheese and they have their own offices and they have their own teams. So Ingrid has seen so much. One thing I look for in my broker, and I say that because I've only ever had Ingrid, is how they have your back. So especially when you're just getting your license, there's a lot of uncertainty on how to really get anything done, because let's be honest, real estate's huge, right? It's a third of the planet. And you can't possibly know it all. It's not hard, but there's just so much to it. So having a qualified broker who is so versed, that also has your back and is willing to help guide you down certain paths has been incredibly valuable, which is why I love having Ingrid around. She does know how to guide her team to make sure that they're successful in their respective skill sets. So on that note, Ingrid, what do you look for when you're trying to bring people on? How do you build your team both inside of Douglas Elliman, the brokerage, and outside of it with your affiliates?
Well, there's a lot of different brokerages that meet certain needs of different agents. For example, we're not a new agent-centric brokerage. We look for experienced agents who have a certain level of production, and then we take that business to another level. Douglas Elliman, in my opinion, is like no other brokerage out there. There are other brokerages that do focus on new agents, and they call them right out of the school. They have extensive different training programs, etc. Because when you do get your Florida real estate license, it's just basically learning some laws, because there is a lot of liability associated with our industry. You want to make sure that you know what the law is. You are also, remember, handling large assets. Some of these assets, you know, that you're dealing with makes you responsible if you don't know your sales contracts. We certainly want you to be very proficient in what the contract says so that you may be able to understand how to fill out a sales contract or what your timelines are, et cetera, so that you could properly represent your customer. So with that being said, whoever you decide to join, make sure that they do have a training program, especially if you're brand new. And I'm not saying that even if you're not brand new, you don't need guidance. You do, because our industry continues to change and evolve. And our main focus is to make sure that we retain our relationship with our customers for repeat business, that we're able to grow that in our industry, and that you don't put anybody in jeopardy or harm's way because of your negligence of not knowing. So I think that it's very important, if you're thinking of getting your real estate license, that you do affiliate yourself with a company that's going to be able to train you appropriately.
It's actually interesting because for those of you who watched $1 Million Listing New York, which, let's be clear, I heart $1 Million Listing, period. It's so much fun. But you guys may know of Mr. I'm going to butcher his name right now because now that I have to say it, I call him all the time, Eccleton. Ingrid. I just blanked on this whole thing. Oh, hold on, everybody, pause the screen. You don't see me have a mental breakdown. It is.
You don't have to say the name, just do what you mean.
Oh yeah, well, so they're with Douglas Elliman, by the way, and now it's not going to work. But they said that one of the things that they didn't do early enough on was join an actual team, a bigger franchise, help them get their name out there and get things moving. So I always thought that was very interesting, especially when they're dealing with what you said, large assets. And that's what people often forget about when they are dealing with real estate, that this is actually an asset class. You can go and buy a house on your own, just like you can buy and sell a car on your own. But when you actually look at real estate as an asset class where you're holding your wealth and you're actually able to pass on your wealth generation to generation and build your own net worth, you approach it differently. You start seeing it differently than just a place where you rest your head. It's something that has a story that tells your family lineage behind it. I think that's very, very insightful for it. But now we've had to adjust with COVID, right? So we can't do the traditional go in and do a traditional open house anymore. We're having to take things virtual. Ingrid, why don't you talk about how Douglas Elliman and what we've been doing to make that shift happen, that real estate agents should be aware and how they can apply it to their business?
Well, right now, and what's been going on obviously is everybody has been home. I mean, we've been quarantining, and we have a captive audience. So most people are on their computer. They're looking at the properties through virtual tours. Agents are becoming very savvy in things like Zoom, where they're able to do, and before it was, we still use it, FaceTime. We're able to create videos of our properties, and we've had a lot of exposure because of that, because we have a captive audience as agents, and if we're presenting beautiful quality videos, then I think it's a lot easier for a potential buyer to see what we have in inventory, and also for a seller to see what we do to market the property.
And Douglas Elliman is known for their marketing. That's one of the things that sets us apart. Everything is very streamlined, which is very different than if you were in a smaller brokerage where you might have some more creativity, but when you're dealing with the asset classes that a luxury brokerage like Douglas Elliman is, having that branding, which is what we're going to be talking about today, is essential. So other like brands, Douglas Elliman likes to, we have a caliber behind the brokerage. And you guys are going to start noticing this as you're going to build your teams, right? When you're looking in your markets, who you want to have on your team, who you feel more comfortable with. But what Douglas Elliman is doing, their assets, we are on the same par as Tiffany's. As one of the ones that we do a lot of work with, we do a lot of stuff with the equestrian world, especially down here. You know, high-end things like Fendi and Gucci and Louis Vuitton, like they're on that level of brand name notoriety. So Ingrid, what is it that we have that you suggest any broker do to protect their brand and grow their brand to match their partnerships?
Well, I mean, are you talking about like someone who's starting their own brokerage, or are you talking about agents, new agents getting their license?
That's a great question. So let me clarify. It could be yes, and also for these new investors that are not licensed, but they still have to create a brand for themselves, right? So you have, if you know that you're an investor and you're going to work with an agent that's like Douglas Elliman, you need to make sure that your brand is up to par with what that brokerage has or whatever that is in their market.
So just so I'm clear, like, okay, so your investors that are looking to affiliate yourself and build a relationship with an agent that works for a brokerage that's going to help you acquire properties. Is that correct?
Yes, much better said than me.
What I would do, I mean, I think that's very important when you're looking for an agent and a brokerage to work with to identify the properties of interest, that you really find someone who is a specialist in the area, that has market share in that area, someone who has experience, somebody that you feel comfortable and that you identify with, where your levels of expectations are met, and that there's a clear level of communication, because communication is key. There are times where the communications broker down because maybe perhaps your expectations are not clear, but maybe they're not clear because they're not met. And it's probably, I think that as long as you talk about what it is that you expect, what it is that you're looking for, and everybody is on the same page, then chances are, you know, your expectations will be met from that agent. But I would certainly identify, you know, the expert in the area and somebody that can help you achieve your goal of whatever it might be.
Are you seeing any similarities now to what you had before with the short sale crash and I'm sorry, my dog and my doorbell at the same time. I'm loving working from home. One moment. Guys! Oh, mute. We're back now. Are you seeing any similarities to even say 2008, 2012 versus what we're going through today?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Tell us more.
What I'm seeing and what, you know, they're forecasting is that, you know, the properties are continuing to go up in price. You know, maybe between 1% and 5% was what the economist Dr. Yen said in the last NAR meeting that I watched. And I think that there's a lot of people who believe that maybe they can just get a steal right now. But I can tell you that in our market, inventory is low, and you know, it's a seller's market, and the current inventory that we do have at every price point, specifically in our areas, they're moving. So it's a great time to put your house on the market if you're thinking of selling. And there are buyers out there that are coming in to our area, to South Florida by the droves, because they're looking for properties.
And that's actually very important to know. And I'm going to take that because that's where I wanted to segue. So you have to know where your buyers are coming from. In order to have a seller's market, you have to know who is buying what people are selling. So our area in Boca Raton, we call this affectionately the 6th borough. because we have so many people that flock down from the Northeast that actually want to live in Florida. Well, now think about it. We have a couple of people on the call, Marlon, Stephanie, who live up in New York. Now you guys are starting to see people are really, if they were questioning wanting to move out of the city before, now they're really ready to go because they've been living inside of a their apartment that's like a 6x6 box or whatever they have for the past 4 or 5 months, and they're ready for some fresh air, maybe some land, some palm trees, the sun. Let me tell you, when you can feel your toes 12 months out of the year in a row, you can't go back to the snow. It doesn't work. You love it too much. Everything is happier. Your skin glows. You want to move down to Florida, come on down. You know a good agent. How you doing? So that's what you want to know, where people are moving in from and how you can market to them. Ingrid, what do you suggest as far as marketing to people who are outside, way to go, Bo, outside of your area when you want to market to, say, like New York, or for marketing to places like Boston or Chicago? What are some of the best practices that local agents or brokers can do to attract those buyers?
Well, I think that what's most attractive about South Florida is the lifestyle, the weather, the year-round weather, the close proximity to everything from beaches to entertainment to sports to restaurants to malls. There's so many activities for every age group. You've got sports for the kids, great, schools, and, you name it. I mean, it's whatever your family is or whatever you're looking for. I think that South Florida meets all of the requirements, which makes us an attractive area to so many different people from everywhere, internationally, domestically. There's people moving from even like West Boca to East Boca there's people just find our area very attractive. And I think that the best way to show that to someone who's not from our area is to use video. I think video is very important, and to show them what it would look like stepping outside of the property, what the street, how fast you can get to wherever it is you want to go, whether it's the beach, whether it's the park, showcasing things that are important to different people. I mean, everybody has their most important things that they want out of their property. So I think that it's video.
You do such a great job of it on your Instagram too. Like, if you guys don't follow Ingrid on Instagram, which you probably don't, but you should, I see more, I got my exercise through COVID by watching her take her bike rides every day. Like, it was always about lifestyle. It wasn't that I don't think I ever saw you post anything about a house or so, anything like that. It was always about, okay, this is us on the boat. This is us on our bikes going to the store. Look at this iguana. It was just, it made you feel like you were outside, and it was just so nice and refreshing. I really like that. Do you recommend certain social media platforms? Do you use some one way and some another? Like, how do you determine that?
I basically have LinkedIn, I have Instagram, and I have Facebook, and I post different things on different websites. Sometimes, Facebook and Instagram might, merge together because they share, like, one thing goes to the other thing. But, at the same time, it's whatever that your audience is engaged by. I think that that's the most important thing. And you can tell what is most engaging, obviously, by the comments and the likes that you get. So let's say that, if you have a property that you're selling, and you did a video as opposed to like 5 pictures, or if you did a poll, or if you did a question, how many comments and how many likes did you get? And you can gauge which is most effective for the audience that you have, that are your friends.
I think your personality has a lot to do with that too. Because some people are really good on video, and some people are not as versed in that. So they might be better at blogging, or they might be better at phone calls, or whatever their medium might be. Something else I like is I still like a good newsletter when I get that in my email. I'm opening them more now than I ever did before COVID. I find that because people are writing more interesting things, I think, because they're at home, they've got more time to do it. That's just my take on it. Anyway. So do you work with investors often, Ingrid?
Well, I'm a non-competing broker, but
Which I love about you, by the way.
Thank you. Our agents do work with investors, yes.
And what do you tell them? Like, what are some of your more successful agents doing with their investors right now?
I think that they're identifying great properties that are on and off market for them. They have access to, properties that are just being, listed within the brokerage that might not be on the MLS. They also collaborate with each other for, other agents might have a seller or a buyer who has a need or a want for something. And then during my meetings, our agents talk to each other about these properties that are not available to everyone else. And within the brokerage, they do a lot of business together as well.
And I love how, and also I want to specify, notice how it's interesting because if you're not in the industry, Pamela, I think, probably just caught on this. Ingrid's saying within the brokerage, which is very, very telling because there was a big change that happened late December, I want to say. I think it was December, it might have been January, where they changed the rules about pocket listings. And that if you have a pocket listing, you can't advertise the pocket listing unless it's within your own local brokerage, the one that you are hanging your license with in that address. Otherwise, you had to put it on the MLS now. So that's very interesting to see how they've made that work. Otherwise, they were equating it to, how do I put this in a simple way? Not insider trading, but everyone, because agents have a fiduciary responsibility to the public. So if they know of a property and they are not telling the public about it, and they only give it to a handful of people on their VIP list, then it's the equivalent of insider trading. So, but they can't restrict that within the local brokerage that they work with because you have your assistants or you have receptionists or you have other people that are on your team and they've all got to put the package together to present it, which is one of the reasons why they changed that law so that you can communicate within your brokerage. But if you have a pocket listing that you're actually marketing, you have to put out the MLS. Am I doing a decent job making that succinct, Ingrid?
I just think your analogies are awesome, but there's a lot to it. For example, if it's maybe your audience doesn't know what a pocket listing might be because they're not realtors. So you have to say, what it means. And what it means is that there are times where we have a listing agreement that is signed and perhaps that seller does not want it advertised to the public yet. So if you advertise it to the public or even put out a sign, or if you send out a postcard, anything, then what the National Association of Realtors has, their policy is that immediately within one business day, that listing must go on the MLS to give everybody a fair chance to buy the property. So that is why. But if it is a listing that you have that cannot be exposed through the MLS, and as realtors, we have to abide by the policy, and therefore we can only expose that listing within our own brokerage. That goes for every brokerage out there that has a listing that is not on the MLS.
And it's so interesting that so one of the things that people are starting to, I think there's a little bit of a shift right now culturally in how people are perceiving real estate professionals. And I think it's beforehand, when I was taking coaching with Tom Ferry, they used the analogy that real estate agents were looked at as one step above a used car salesman. And that was like, oh, that hit you right in the stomach. But now I think there's been a bigger shift. Now people are starting to see, thank you to social media marketing and what we're doing on television, how hard real estate agents have to work to get something done. And it's kind of impressive to me how what we've been working on in this group is telling people not to be cheap and try to negotiate the real estate agent's commission down, because there's so many better strategies than that. So one of the things that we've been talking about as well, that if you guys were here for Pip's conversation, we talk about actually increasing the commission to 8% versus 6%, because that way you're going to get more traffic into the door, and it's actually going to cost you less money than reducing your price tag on your property, and also increases the neighborhood property value when it sells. So there are different strategies like that that you can utilize and see what's going on with it. So Ingrid, do you have anything? I know your time is running short, and I do want to give people a chance to ask questions, but do you have anything you'd like to impart to any of these individuals in the room on what they should look for in a good agent, or becoming an agent?
I just want to, say, what you're saying related to the perception of different agents. I mean, different the different styles that people have to do, real estate sales are something that you should look at, as far as you could check what their testimonials are on Zillow or Realtor.com and what the experiences of other buyers and sellers have had with that agent. That way you can gauge, if that's the person that you want to work with. You want to make sure that they're full-time, that they have a good reputation, that they're knowledgeable, and like I said before, versed in the market that you're looking at, and that your expectations are clear and that they're met and that there's an open line of communication. I believe, there's a lot of times where, agents are perceived that, like $1 million listing, like you mentioned, like everybody's running around in a Rolls Royce and stuff. But, we work very hard, realtors that are full-time and that, are successful in this business work 24/7. I mean, we're always on. I mean, this is what we do for a living, and we take it very seriously. We do not regulate commissions at all. So, if commission is a factor, that is a discussion that you would want to have with your particular agent.
Well said. Does anybody have any questions for the lovely Miss Ingrid Carlos before she has to run off? It usually takes them a second to hit the unmute button, and then they fight to see who gets on the line. Go on, Stephanie. I know you're there. Marlon, Bo, I see all of you.
Hi.
Today.
Go ahead, ask the question.
No, I said no questions today. Like it was like.
I guess I answered all your questions.
Oh,
Yeah, no,
well, then Leanne, right? Leanne, what question do you have any questions for Ingrid?
Can she elaborate about how to become an agent?
Sure. In order to become a real estate agent, you have to meet a certain level of criteria. You have to be 18 years and over with a high school diploma or equivalent of. And what else is it, Jacob?
You have to have a social security number, or you have to be able to provide a citizenship documentation. You have to pass a 63-hour pre-licensing exam, and then you can go and sit for your state license. Now, this is for Florida. Every state has their own criteria. Okay, so to be very, very clear on that. And so you sit, and then you take the exam. Once you pass the exam, you have to hang it with a broker. And then after you have been in the industry for 2 years in Florida, then you're able to take your broker's exam. Regardless if you become a broker or staying agent, or regardless of what state you're in, you have to continue to take continuing education credits to make sure you're up to date on ethical compliance, on industry standards. The laws are always changing, especially when it comes to real estate. The 2017 Tax Cut and Job Creation Act changed everything for us. It was incredible as far as how we can make money in real estate as investors. So that was something that we could take continuing education on as well. But there's also things we take that's like different practices, like becoming a foreclosure expert or a short sale expert or a vacation home expert. There are different letters that go at the end of our name, which surprisingly, I don't have any. That's odd. Huh.
So to answer your question, you have to, take the test for the class after you do the 63 hours. And then after that, you would have to do a state exam. And you have to apply to the DBPR.
Mm-hmm. Get your fingerprints, all that stuff that goes with it. Yeah. Liam, what state are you in again?
California. California is taking about 5 to 6 months when I inquire with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's how long it is.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a little bit slower right now, obviously, obvious reasons. But, if that is something that you want to pursue, just keep on going and, get that information and see if it's right for you.
If it makes you feel any better, I've been trying to take my instructor's exam. And the day I was going to go, they closed down the testing centers for COVID. So all that knowledge I have, I've forgotten most of it. I've got to take it all over again, but I'll get it. Don't worry, you're not alone. Everyone's waiting for everything to open. Oh, Melissa has a question in the chat. Let's see.
Yes.
Melissa, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. So it's
Go
kind
ahead.
of a complex question, and I'll go ahead. I was trying to make an offer on a house with the intent to wholesale it. The realtor, well, the broker sent me a contract, and it it was written in a way that it looked like I was going to be locked in, obligated to buy it myself if I couldn't find a hard money lender to sign the contract to. And I was asking if there was any way that we could amend it, and he said no, it's against the law to alter it in any way. Any thoughts about that? Or
Are you in which state?
Washington State.
Yeah, I wouldn't, I only know Florida. I'm not, I'm sorry, I can't answer that question. So I really don't know what the rules and regulations are in Washington because, you know, each state has different contracts, different rules.
Mm-hmm. Some states aren't fiduciary. Some states are. So again, it's different. So you have to make sure you talk to an attorney in that area. Now, a blanket statement, which is not, I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm a sassy little Florida real estate broker associate. Okay, so take this for what it is. But what you see people do all the time in contracts, you can scratch things out initial and date. And as long as all parties consent, that's the legally binding contract. All right, so we're going to be talking about this next week on what constitutes a valid and legal contract. And believe it or not, let's do this. This is a pop quiz for everybody else except Ingrid, because I know she knows the answer. Everybody else, do you need to have a definite date, a closing date, to have a valid contract? What do you think? Yes or no?
No.
Anyone else? No one?
No.
Are you saying that because Marlon said it?
Ish.
Well, then you're both correct. You do not need to have a closing date to make it an actual valid contract. So those things like that, we're going to be going through when we get to that stage in our education. So, but what I do want to show you is one thing. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you guys can see something. I've done this before, and this seems to help people when I do this. But this is what we have for form simplicity. I didn't have time to sign into dot loop right now, so this is quick. But if you go and you actually see all the different contracts that real estate professionals actually have, we've got lots of them, lots and lots and lots of them, okay? Now, the thing is, most agents, I'm still scrolling down, right? So there are also many cool contracts that have been created for us. This is from the Florida bar, so this is what we would use in Florida. Now the thing is, when we go, the most common, look, there's her name, yay! The most common transactions we have are right here, so we see what's going on. Now, if you look in your contract in Washington, if you have this as-is contract, and you open this up, let me open you up, boom, 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 open. I think I already downloaded this like 5,000 or 6,000 times. Let's go back over here. Hold on. If you look at this contract, here we go. What you want to look at, there are parts in. Now, most agents think it's illegal to wholesale, but that's because you're using the word wholesale. Stop using it. It drives me crazy. If you look down here, there's something called assignment. Okay, assignability is number 7. Buyer may assign, thereby be released, may for liability, may assign but not be released, or may not assign. It's in their contracts, but you're using the wrong words, which is why agents think you're doing something illegal. And they have a fiduciary responsibility in most cases to protect their seller. So they're not going to side with you when you're using terms that sound sketchy to them. But when you look at the assignability of a contract, then you can actually look at your contract with an intelligent eye. Which is why when I tell you guys to talk about what you're doing, I never say use the term wholesale. I say use the term assign or assignment. That's the professional term, okay? So is that interesting to see? Yeah?
Yeah.
Perfect. Again, this is stuff for financing that you guys can take a look at. Have your agents send you these contracts so you guys can take a look at them. And therefore you know what you're working with because you want to set them up. You want to set your broker up for success because they're trying to set you up for success. Does that make sense? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this. Ingrid is a very busy woman who's got multiple calls to get to, so I'm going to let her go. Ladies and gentlemen, would you say goodbye to our
Bye,
lovely,
everybody.
beautiful,
Thank you
fearless
for
leader?
having me. I just want to leave you with a couple of thoughts. Realtors are not attorneys. They're not practicing law. Contracts can only be interpreted by an attorney. If you're ever in a bind, like your question, Melissa, I would strongly advise that you seek the advice of an attorney. Okay? With that, thank you for having me and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Ingrid. Be blessed. Mwah. So now that you guys have met Ingrid, you guys know, well, this is who I listen to and who has saved my assets on more than one occasion. Let's talk about what your thoughts are about a broker or an agent, and have you thought about using your broker or agent to help you brand your company? Okay, so how many of you guys have considered that who you decide to work with is actually going to build your company? Have you guys considered that? Pamela, raise your hand. Good. Yeah. Carlos.
Jacob.
Derek.
I want
Yes.
Jacob.
Oh, I'm vicious. Like when I get with agents in the other areas, I'm like, oh, who is that? Oh, she's not it. Lindsay. I was gonna talk with her for a second. She's been funny with that. So what are you guys seeing right now? What did you guys learn from that conversation first, before I go to my next question? What did you guys learn from that conversation?
Move to Florida.
Come on down,
No.
honey. We're a great market. I love it down here.
You can become an agent and still do the investing, right? As well.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can be, it's just another tool, I guess, right?
It's another stream of income.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is, when you are licensed, and Pamela can attest to this, when you are licensed, there are certain things that are benefits and certain things that are pain in the butt, right? So to talk about things that are a pain in the butt, Pamela, I'm going to bring you on here now, because you have not only your second generation, your kids are also in it, so they're third generation real estate professionals. You are just now starting to look at investing. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So why don't you talk about the things that you enjoy about being a real estate professional and a licensed real estate professional, and also why it held you back?
Oh, well, basically, I mean, I guess the main thing I enjoyed is I can make as much as I want to make, and no one's going to stop me from achieving what I want. I was in technology for over 20 years, and I pretty much hit a lucite ceiling down here in South Florida, as I call it, because I was a woman in technology, which was really a man's field. So when I finally went into real estate, I just did what I wanted to do. The thing is, what holds you back is it's sort of beaten in our head and into our heads, is that as professionals, as real estate professionals, we have information or knowledge that the average consumer doesn't have. We understand how the market is. We have access to that data, and we know more. Even though we're not attorneys, we understand contract, at least the real estate contract. So you have to disclose at some point that you're a realtor. Now, when you disclose, I've heard different stories. I was brought up by somebody who, she was very much be transparent from the beginning. And when I went into real estate back in 1996, it was, you tell when you hand over your business card, and you're supposed to hand over your business card when you meet somebody. If you're going to talk real estate, you hand them your business card. So I felt sort of bound to, as far as investing, because, as soon as they hear the word realtor, there is a used car salesman perception. And I really was hoping that by the time this next generation came in, it was going to be better. And I'm just going to tell all you guys, because you're going to have to deal with realtors at some point in time. It's gotten worse. It has gotten worse. In 2008, a lot of realtors dropped out, and it was the thank God moment, because at least it thinned the herd, and people who weren't doing the business at least got out. But now from 8, or actually 13 on, 12, 13 on, we've ramped up again. There's an enormous amount of realtors. And my sons, who are only in it a few years now, their biggest complaint is, no one responds, Mom. We pick up the phone, we call, we talk to everybody. I can't get a response to an email, let a phone call or a text. So it's not great.
So it's funny because like 1/3 of all Floridians seem to have the real estate license.
Well, and they're, and 1/3 have a real estate license, right? And probably 70% of them have a job, a full-time job. So that they can't answer the phone at work. You know what I'm saying? So I only mention this because if you go to look for a partner, like we keep saying, do partner with someone who's a full-time realtor. It's not this, you know, this second job, unless, you know, I've done it as a second job at certain points in time. I needed medical insurance or things like that, but I didn't take on much business because I knew what that meant. I knew what it meant to give good service to my customers. And I have had phone calls at 1 a.m. as a realtor to talk people off a ledge because they're nervous about a transaction. So you've got to be available.
Especially because you're getting them into so much debt. Like this is often the biggest purchase they're going to make.
Well,
and there are a lot of you guys that are like Melissa's nervous just by that one contract, right? It's normal.
Yeah, it's normal. And like I work two sides. It's the first time home buyer. They've never done it. They freak out. I'm also, I've been a 55 plus seller's agent now for, you know, almost 25 years. And some of them are purchasing and they'll tell you, oh, I bought 5 homes in, you know, in my life. And I'm like, yeah, that's, you know, my last 3 months of my, it's just the last 3 months I did 5. But it's, you know what, when you're buying and selling, it's very different when you're in the transaction at that side. The other thing is, you know, and you guys may come across this as you go through things and you find people with high equity in their homes. They've been in their homes a long time and they're ready to phase into the next phase of their life, which is not a positive one. You know, they're going into assisted living, independent living, they're moving home to their children. It's a lot of stress because
they're losing their independence.
They're losing independence. They may not have thought about it. You know, I luckily, my parents have, and they had a plan, but a lot of people, oh, we'll deal with it when we get there. And when we get there, they're all freaked out about what's happening because it means, unfortunately, they're at the end of their life. Instead of saying, I'm at the end of a long life, which is really what I try to show them is, you know, you're lucky you made it to this point because a lot of people don't make it to this point.
Yeah, that's very true. And that was
You know,
that was said very sensitively, by the way.
You know, you learn, you know, as a realtor, you really have to not just listen, but you have to be a therapist to a certain extent. There's a lot that goes into it.
It's funny, when you're dealing with people's money or you're dealing with their bodies, they will open up to you in ways that you were not expecting. So it's something you got to keep in mind. So, and that's the part that I do think good agents who are investors do. Like Pamela, the reason why I'm so glad that you're a part of this is because you already have the emotional side down. But it's the part that everybody else in the call, though you're not licensed, you're just an investor, you guys forget that part. All you work on are spreadsheets and numbers, right? And therefore it's like, well, if you forget that this is someone's life, that they have lived there, you all look at your house right now. You've got pictures from where you went on vacation. You've got curtains from when you went overseas. You've got rugs that you bought as a way of, you know, when you went to India or whatever it's going to be. I'm using my house, for example, right? You take time to decorate it as a way of expressing who you are, and you live in that. That is your environment. The problem with investors is you guys take that away. You don't have the emotional attachment to those pictures or to those walls or to that paint color. But think about what you're doing in your home. When you guys went into, how long, for example, maybe it's just me, but do you know how long it takes me to pick out a bedspread?
Oh, it
I mean,
takes me
just saying.
5 years. It takes me 5 years to
I
cover.
know, right?
I mean, forget. But you know what? Let's go back a second, because this really is something you guys should understand. You got to be problem solvers, right? I mean, the most emotional moment that I had in my life was showing a property that wasn't mine, wasn't my listing, it was my buyers. I was meeting them there, and I had time before they came, and I was sitting in the living room. Person, I don't know if they had passed or moved out, but on the table, it was obvious that most of the possessions had been taken already.
Mm-hmm.
There were all these books of photos. A lot of people, like what you make for a kinsey or a bar bat mitzvah, the weddings, they were all sitting there from the grandchildren. And it even makes me emotional now, because that was someone's life. Like, it's someone's life. And so I think if you become a problem solver, showing people how they can get out of their problem or make their situation easier, then you're more, Jacob, you remember when it used to, you don't remember, there was a time when the buyer and seller actually met each other to make the offer. They'd sit at the table together. And then there became a time where the realtors felt that really wasn't the best way. And you see it sometimes on the shows. People write letters to say why they want the property, what they're going to do for the property. I've sold a lot of properties because an investor would offer money, but they wanted someone who was going to live in the house. Now, the flip side of that for us is, you're going to come in and you're going to rehab it, and you're going to make it more, you're going to help out their neighbors and bring up the value of the property in the area. There's always another way to look at things,
Mm-hmm.
But you got to show them that you care about them, you want to help them out. Sorry.
No, you've nothing to, that was exactly, I love how you just said that. Because there's two parts, at least, to a real estate transaction. There's the house you're looking at, and then there's the neighborhood it sits in. Location, location, location. So some people, how do I word it? I know what I want to say. I'm trying to find the words to say it.
Yeah, be careful how you say it.
Yeah, I'm trying to make it, I'm trying to say it. You were so nice.
Some people are very considerate of who lives around them, okay?
Mm-hmm.
There's an old saying, because I used to, actually it was from Reader's Digest. I read it years ago. The guy comes in to look at the house, and he goes to the neighbor. Well, what are the neighbors like? And the neighbor says, well, what are the neighbors like where you are? And he kept asking all these questions about the area. And the guy kept responding, how is it where you are? And the reality is, neighborhoods are what you make of it. I never stuck my nose into my neighbor's business, and I try to keep my personal life separate from people. And wherever I move, I wave hello, but I don't know their names even. That's me. On the other side, there are people that are always, come and have coffee, let's get together. And they're very concerned about the community, mm-hmm. and what's going to happen to the community, and who's going to live in my house. Okay? Let's just say it that way. So they want to make sure that they just don't sell it. They want to sell it to somebody that would fit into the community.
That's actually so beautifully said. For example, my area right now, I live in a very, hold on, I gotta make sure I say this without breaking any laws. I live in a very tight-knit community.
Very homogenous, probably.
Very homogenous.
And that's part of the problems.
It is a part, and especially now, and with what I do with these kids that come in, they don't exactly fit the homogenous bill, we'll say.
Yeah.
So my neighbors, I had to win over very quickly, because I knew what I was going to be doing, and I made them love me, and they love my dog, and we go for walks. How can I help you? Hello, Ruth. Come on out, darling. Let's have some coffee in the middle of COVID. You stay over there. I'll be over here. If you need anything, I'll go to the public system for you, blah, blah, blah. You make nice. It's interesting how you're saying it though, because if there are people who are more involved in the community, I think they're more willing to work with someone who's going to bring up the value of the community in their absence because it leaves a legacy, versus people who are not involved in the community
Right.
who just like to stay to themselves. They're probably more involved with just the house, not the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting little observation.
It's sort of like what everyone has been saying, have the conversation and know who you're talking to, right? You got to try to make them open up and tell you what's their motivation and why, how they feel about the sale.
So now, so you've been doing this for so long, and you've been an agent for so long.
Yeah.
What are you noticing that's different from the investor side that you're learning? What are some of the differences that you're taking away?
In all fairness, I've known about the investor side before I even became a realtor.
Mm-hmm.
And I took courses, I can't think of, Carlton Sheets. Oh my God.
Oh my God.
You want to talk old.
Michael.
I probably got rid of the books, unless they're in the garage, probably. But I think 2 moves ago, I got rid of the books. And that's something else I'm going to say. As a realtor, I tell other realtors sometimes we should move every 5 to 10 years so we understand the stress we put people under. So even if you're getting a deal like an investment deal, somebody's going through stress during this time.
Oh yeah. Was it stress, taxes, and divorce are the most stressful things people can go through? Death, taxes, and divorce. Moving, death,
moving
taxes,
is actually
divorce.
one of them. I had 3 in 1 year. I had,
Dear
together.
God.
Anyway, I was like, if I don't get a stroke, I'm good.
Oh, that was 2019. I moved 4 times in 7 months.
You see, but you understand it, right? So I've understood options and I wrap around mortgages. I understood it even before I went into real estate. I realized 2 things. People are closed-minded. People only want to do business the way business has always been done. They don't think outside the box. And that's why, the real estate business gets along so well. And what held me back was finding the money. And, finding money to finance deals.
So now you're learning where to find money.
Yeah, that was what was
deal.
missing for me.
And so the thing is, guys, if you can remember this, so keep in mind, Pamela as an agent is going to get 50% of the deals that you're not going to.
Right.
You're going to get 50% that she's not going to.
Right.
So if you have both, and you know how to work both, you're now able to capitalize depending on where you're approaching it from. Does that make sense? Now, does that mean I want you to go get your real estate license? No, it doesn't. Am I telling you to do it? No. Am I telling you not to do it? No. I'm telling you it's got to make sense in your business.
Yeah.
In your business.
And you got to figure out what your end game is. Jacob and I discuss this all the time, because if you're thinking you're going to make the commission, why do you want to make the commission? You get a $10,000 commission. If you go with a big company like
Keller Williams.
Jacob and I are with, I'm with, Century 21 or with Stephanie, you got to pay possibly, I don't know what Elliman does, but I have a franchise fee. That's a percentage off the top. The broker and I both lose that money. Then from there, we have the split how I split my money with the broker. A brand new agent in my company, and I can say this, I can't tell you what I do, it is a 60-40 split. He's very nice. He only takes 40% of your commission. So now you just did a really difficult job. You listed the property that you invested in, right? Or sweat equity, if not money. And now you're going to give a piece of what you're earning to somebody else. The only maybe positive side is if you're working, like we work with companies that if we're selling our own, we only have to give up that percent, the franchise fee. I have to give him, he's not going to walk away without money. He wants the franchise fee still and the percentage of my commission that he would have gotten if I got the money. So I'm saving a decent amount of money that I can split with my partners. That's what the dollars come. I hope I didn't go too fast for everybody, because that
was great. They can always rewatch.
That's a little confusing. I think Carlos looks like, what?
So is it better to just be an investor, like learn to be an investor instead of being a real estate agent?
I think so. I mean, you got fees to pay. There's almost $1,000 a year in fees. And then I have to keep up on my education, which doesn't really cost much money. That's like piddly, just time. It takes time. I have 14 hours I'm obligated to every 2 years. But you have to know what you're trying to do. Are you trying to put money in your pocket? If that's it, then what I would say is go look for the next deal, because the few $1,000s you're saving yourself, you could be getting ready to put the money somewhere else. And you could make more money that way. You're not gonna.
What do you mean, investing, being a real estate investor?
Yeah, like you do the deal. You don't worry about selling the property, unless you want to try to do it on your own, of course. But I mean, you give it to a realtor, and then you start looking and investigating for where you're going to put the money that you get out of the sale. You can't do everything. You can't do it. You can't.
Stay in your lane.
Exactly.
Stay in your lane.
And that's pretty much why I, for 24 years, stayed in my real estate lane, because I made enough money that it was comfortable. But now I'm coming, towards retiring, and I don't have money to, I was just keeping it going, and now I'm only as good as my next deal. And with COVID, oh, that's wonderful.
So and what she just said is what I want you guys to hear. That is what I want you to hear. When I asked her what the biggest difference is between a real estate investor and agent from what she's learning now is that, okay? Yeah. She went from a left side statement, being comfortable, only being as good as her next deal, to an investor. And that's something that creates wealth, that builds assets. Do you guys see the difference in that statement she just made?
You've got to think of your realtor as your painter. Do you want to paint every house that you go and rehab? Maybe you do. Then okay. But otherwise, it's your team. Like Jacob says, it's your team. It's building your team, and that's part of your team. You know that they'll list it. They'll spend the money on advertising it, on photographing it, and you don't have to worry about it.
So what you're saying is, like, as long as you have a real estate agent on your team, it's better to be an investor.
Absolutely.
On the investor.
Absolutely. Because as a realtor, like I said, I'm only as good as my last deal. I don't have consistent income. I don't have, there were months in the beginning, $500, the next month, $5,000.
Okay.
24 years later, okay, it's $3,000, and then it's $10,000. It's okay. The numbers changed, but it's the same thing.
So what you guys are, if you did get your license, which I'm not telling you to do, I'm also not telling you to not do it. I had mine ahead of time. I'm going to look at it in a second. Melissa says, if you do get your license, remember, you are going to use it as an additional stream of income. So for example, I can get referral business and take referral fees. It's another stream of income.
Yeah.
I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket. Yeah. Now, but I already had my license. You don't. And what a lot of new investors will do is they'll go and they'll get their license as a way of procrastinating actually building their business. Versus getting a really good real estate agent or broker on your team, letting them stay in their lane and you stay in yours, and you do business together, right?
Right. And why
you
not
don't have to do everything. Go ahead.
Why not be the investor that when I walk in and I know my people really need to sell and get out in 30 days, why aren't you the first call that I make and tell you that I have a property? Why don't we try to sell it before it goes on market? Maybe we can work something out. They don't even have to list their house. You can't pay a realtor that, you have to pay. You have to figure something out. But anyway, that's between you and the realtor. But
there are other
and everyone should know this. As a real estate agent, all my money that I make, as far as has to go through my broker. My broker pays me. I'm an agent of my broker.
Exactly.
I can't be paid on the side.
We can't even take dinner, gift certificates.
No, $25 gifts in or out, meaning I can't give anyone any more than $25, and they can't give me any more than $25.
It's tricky. It's very tricky. But think of it this way: it's an asset class. It's regulated by the SEC the same way, or It's regulated as well by the government. And therefore, it's the same thing stocks are done, right? Stocks have the same thing. There are stock brokers, and they have a higher level. The same with insurance brokers. It's the same thing. Otherwise, it's so easy to get scammed.
So that's why getting your license may, you know, you're putting more things on top of you that you have to abide by.
And like I said, I'm not saying not to, but I'm not saying to make it an excuse. Most people are just going to make an excuse to keep stalling, right? So I want to clarify something about my statement, because Ingrid's been texting me. I want to make sure I say this, and I'm going to take this off of Facebook, but I'm going to edit it for everybody I haven't. But essentials of a valid contract that you should all have: 1, lawful subject; 2, offer and acceptance; 3, consideration; and 4, competent parties. Those are all the things you need for a valid contract. Now, to be valid and enforceable, there's a difference. To be valid and enforceable, you also should have it in writing. It does not have to be. An oral contract, for example, is enforceable for up to 4 years with statutes of limitations, and written is up to 5 years with statutes of limitations. You could also, an exception to the statute of frauds exists when a buyer makes partial payment and either takes possession of or makes improvements to the property, which is something I'm doing right now in one of my deals. So you want to make sure it's payment and or improving the property. That gives you equitable interest in that property. But that's why it's very interesting, because if you're going to have a real estate transaction, does have to have a closing date if you're doing a real estate transaction. Because, so that's what I'm showing. When I asked the question, what do you need a closing date for a valid contract? Well, the contract's for any industry. For a real estate transaction that you're having a licensed broker with, that's longer, that's 365 days or shorter, you need to have a closing date. Why is that? Anything longer than that, a year and a day, has to be prepared by an attorney.
Right.
Makes sense? Because it's an ongoing lease. It's an ongoing transaction. Go ahead, Pam.
My suggestion, it's just a suggestion for anyone who wants to become a realtor, is
think twice.
Not just think twice. By the time I did it, I had done 3 of my own transactions. I had owned 3 different properties, so I knew what went into doing this. So I would just say, like, understand what's involved in a transaction from both sides, the buyer and the seller side. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you don't realize the amount of work that it involves, you're spending money. In Florida, it's not expensive. It's under $1,000 to get licensed, but it's a lot of time. It's 63 hours for the first class, and then within 2 years you got to do 45 hours.
And then you have the post license you got to do.
Got a 45-hour class, yeah. 45 hours, guys. That's a whole week's of work. So you got to go in on a Monday, and you go to class until Sunday. You take the test on Sunday. It's a lot of work. So, I mean,
there's also the amount of time that you guys, when someone says they're a broker, they're just different than an agent, because the amount of, I'm trying to get my calculator to pull up, the amount of time you got to spend in order to do it is significant, guys. Here we go. So 63 hours plus 45.
And you got your broker's hours, which is 60, right?
72.
72, another 3 weeks, huh?
Yeah. So you already have, just get your real estate license, 108 hours. Think about how many credit hours you have in university. All right. So then, there you just put that together, right? So it's 72, then you have 72 hours, and then you have your postdoc. Your post is.
So you got to pass a test at your 63-hour point, and if you don't pass in Florida, if you don't pass that test, you got to retake your 63 hours. But if you go to the right school, you'll pass. Yeah. Then you got to pass your state test. Then you got to go for the 45, and you pass the test after the 45. So it's not just like.
So guys, I'm going to get to Melissa. I can't see you. So guys, it's over 220 hours that someone spends just getting educated. Yeah. So think about how long your college, how many credit hours in a college degree. Just think of it, guys. Just think of it. It's not light. Okay. So Melissa, is there anything a realtor does for an investor besides representing them during the buying and selling of properties? It's to your question is to ask if there's anything else I should ask or not ask a realtor to do. Well, yes, there is, depending on what their specialty in real estate is. Some of them are can also be property managers. Some of them are, they specialize on the buy side or the sell side, so maybe not both. Some of them are 1031 specialists for real estate. What else do they do? They'll do whatever you need them to do. They're fiduciaries.
But you know what, Jacob? I'm going to tell you, while I was on this call, I got a text message from a previous customer who's a friend of mine, and her son is buying a piece of property. Okay, they didn't use me. He's running into a problem and he's closing tomorrow. I sat here and told her 3 ways that problem can be solved. And the realtor she used didn't know any of it. Okay, so that's what using a good realtor is saying, oh, it's not a problem, it's a situation. Do you want to do X, Y, or Z to get to the closing table? So even though you're saying we deal just with buyers or sellers, I mean, we're supposed to know the market. Yeah, don't be surprised if you wind up using multiple realtors. And I sometimes tell people, there are certain areas I won't touch because I know enough to know I don't know. In Florida, you go down by the water, by the ocean, every 40 years, the apartment building has to meet.
Has to have a facelift.
Have to have a facelift, has to be re-inspected, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of stuff. I don't want to touch a house by the ocean because I don't know everything that goes into it. Some realtors, it doesn't bother. Oh, I'm just a buyer's agent or the seller's agent. Well, you know what? You're supposed to know things. You're supposed to know who to call, where to go, if you're good. You see what I'm saying? And I tell people, no, you're better off finding someone that deals with that all the time. Yeah, that's how I feel. Maybe that's.
Well, you're right. So different like if you're a waterfront specialist, you know that thing. If you're a luxury specialist,
a boat. I mean, I couldn't tell you.
First-time home buyer.
You know, dock sizes and
waterfrontage.
We have fixed bridges down here. I mean, I could look them up on the map. I know how to find them, but I'd have to like drive it to know does the bridge go up or down.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, guys. There's no wrong. You see, there's also this impression that real estate agents are out to get each other. Well, we're always in competition for listings, right? But we have to work together to get transactions done, the same way you guys are doing. The difference is in the investor world, there's much more collaboration from the beginning. So it's a little different. There's definitely, as you guys are learning, there's more collaboration. There's more people getting involved to get something closed.
You'll find that knowledge is power. So the more, you know, the more you can specialize, even as an investor, in one area.
And I'm actually going to go further than that. Execution of the knowledge is power. You can know a ton, but if you don't put it into play, who cares, right? If it's in your head, then you're just not going to do any good. I know a ton about real estate, but I wasn't home for 2 years. I was traveling with the elite, so I was never home to implement it. So my knowledge kept growing, but my business didn't because I wasn't home to do it. So now, fast forward, the past 6 months, I've been building my business back up. And there's nothing, but that's what I had to do. That's what life does. So, but I do like what both Pamela and Ingrid have both said, get a full-time real estate agent so they know what's going on and know what they specialize in. And Melissa, for example, if you know someone who you're trying to do, if they're going to be, are they good rental agents? If you're going to have rental properties, do they work with a reputable property management company? That's something else you can look for. If they are just in the buying and selling, do they have a partner in that field? So you're going to work with multiple agents, and I would just ask them who they would recommend because they know. Like they know who's good in that area. If they've been doing it for longer than I would say 2 years, I would say they would know. Anyway, actually it's funny, is a lot of real estate agents and brokers don't even know that there are such things as real estate investors associations. And then go there and hand out their cards.
Yeah.
I always found that, I was like, no, he doesn't. Okay, cool. That's my area. I'll take it. Anyway, what time do we
Jacob,
have?
I have a comment.
Yes.
Actually, from today's conversation, I actually realized one point. Actually, it makes sense to be a real estate agent. I mean, right now I'm on the investor side, but it makes sense to be a real estate agent actually if you have enough rehab customers. And at that point, I do think that it's good to have a real estate license because you can be representing them to sell the property. But maybe at the beginning, it might not make sense because you're trying to build your investor customer, and at the same time, you're trying to build your real estate agent. It doesn't make sense.
How many wholesale lists are you on? How many wholesale lists are you on currently?
No, I don't have any because I'm only starting.
So before you do that, because that whole tactic is being done by brokerers. I get it. I don't know about Jacob, but 5, 6, 10 a day. They're different real estate brokers who are also, they're wholesaling properties, they're rehabbing properties. That's what they're all built around. Okay, so you're right. You're exactly right. But until you go to a RIA, which is a real estate investment club, and get everybody's name and number and see how many are in your area. You got to find the RIA in your area, and then this is about learning. Jacob's skills, we're going out across the country, but he's teaching you the skills you're going to need when you turn inward at your home area, and how you're going to have to build it up and use it. Okay. So if the more you network, like he said.
And something else that we haven't covered, but we are going to cover as we get there, is it may not make sense for you to be a real estate, to get your license, but to be a partner in a real estate brokerage. If you're not dealing directly with the public, you can actually be, there are certain things we're going to cover, but like if you're a member of an LLC or an LP or there are different ways to be in real estate without a license if you're not dealing directly with the public, and that depends on the role that you're doing. So if you're getting a lot of properties that you say are flipping, and keep in mind, the reason why I'm saying it's up to you if you want to get your license or not, look at your business first, and you have to look at the real estate cycle. Because right now, everybody's talking about flipping. Guys, I haven't been teaching you guys crap about flipping. Have you guys wondered why?
It's not the time.
It's like, if you're a little too late for that, guys. Like right now, your assets are going to be toast if you get into flipping right now. Now, that being said, I'm doing a couple of them, but I'm doing it in a market where it makes sense. But on a macro scale where lending is getting tighter, refinancing is getting harder, how are you going to, what are you going to do? Like, what market are you going to be doing flips in? Now, we are going to teach what to look for, but where we are seeing the growth is in multifamily. So you could either you can take the risky strategy and start flipping right now. That's your business. That's on you to do. Maybe you own a construction company and you don't mind taking the risk because you don't have to pay anybody. I don't know, whatever your risk is different because it's you, versus doing what I'm helping you guys do, which is create systems, get the benefits, get the profits, and then put them into projects that are growing right now. So you're starting to build your net worth, you're starting to build capital, you're getting equity plays, you're building bigger relationships. And then when the market comes around again, you start flipping before everybody else is doing it. The time to flip is when the shows aren't on HGTV. Does that make sense? Like, because now everybody wants to do it, which is why it's hard to buy them. So it's challenging.
There's big changes in the flipping market since just early last year. Jessica and my son actually flipped a house in Miami. So I was in on all these conversations on how much the hard money was and what they were looking at to do the deal. It was always just on the numbers that you were coming in with, and it was I think it was 8 to 10% was the money, and now interest rates have come down even more, and they're looking at 10 to 12% for the money. And it's because they know if they have to take the house back, they're going to have to dump the house. They're not going to be able to bring it up. So you got to be careful what you go. It's always on the buy, right, Jacob?
Your money's on the buy, absolutely.
Your money's on the buy.
So
wholesaling is the way to go. Wholesaling is the way to go.
Right now, especially as you guys are learning, yes.
And learning, yeah.
And we're going to start calling it assignment.
Oh, sorry, assignment, right.
It's okay.
Assignment. We're going to assign the
Sorry.
contract to someone else.
Yes. It sounds, because if you were to talk to an attorney and you say assignment, they'll be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You say wholesale, like, what?
This in the Florida contracts is a specific line that says it's assignable. Assignable, you keep responsibility for the deal, and not assignable.
Okay.
So it's in there, plain as day.
And if you're in like Jersey doesn't have it, they automatically say, from what I know, they say that's not assignable. All you gotta do is scratch it out, initial and date it.
Yeah, so as long as everyone agrees.
As long as everybody agrees. The last thing I want to make sure I have on here is that information included in a sales contract for real estate. A typical sales contract includes, but it's not limited to, parties in the contract, property description, real and personal property included and excluded. That includes like appliances and things like that. Purchase price, effective date, and closing date. Okay. Occupancy and possession, financing terms, closing costs to be borne by the seller or buyer, so who's going to pay what, required disclosures, property inspections, addenda and additional terms, and signatures. So those are what we have that's not limited to, but do include in a sales contract for real estate, okay? Now remember, if you're just doing a valid, just blanket statement, what's a valid contract require? That's what I was mentioning before. That is, I was right with this, so I actually feel better knowing that I said this right thing. But essentials of a valid contract are lawful subject, you have to do legal things, offer and acceptance, consideration, and competent parties. You can't get someone who has dementia to sign a contract when they're not in a good state. This abuse, right? We'll talk about that stuff as we go. So, was that helpful and insightful today, guys? Yeah? Fabulous. Okay, good. So what we're gonna do, I wanted this to become more about branding and how you start working this stuff out. So for you guys who are not on, start looking in your market, go on to Google and type in, well, you're just gonna have to type in wholesaler lists in your area and start getting to know those markets and start getting to know who those players are. I don't want you contacting them yet. I want you starting to get to know who they are, because who you start to affiliate with is gonna start building your brand. Now, everyone here is actually, pretty much everyone is on the investor, is in a real estate survivor. So last night you guys learned about lending. Was that helpful?
Yes.
Yeah, was great, right?
Yeah, Alex was great.
He's fantastic with, oh my God, that man is so brilliant. So we also had, Grayson could not get on the call to do his contract that he was working. He did record it. We are editing it for profanity, and we're then gonna put it where it needs to go.
It'll be more fun with the profanity.
Yeah, we'll have a backstage pass for everybody else too, let me tell you. But it's interesting to see what's going on. It really is. So you guys are on the right page with everything. We have Friday, we're gonna be talking more about branding and marketing. So we're gonna have some things for you guys to consider so you can actually start putting yourself out there and start building that. So you start putting in your market, you're ready to go. So right now, guys, be making your calls. I know, Leanne, I gotta get you more numbers. You gotta get more things together. We're gonna get it all working. It's starting to come together. Some of you guys are starting to get deals. You're starting to get some actual leads. And that's because your skills are getting better. Now, for those of you who are having a hard time, keep practicing. We're gonna do another challenge on Friday. I want you guys to do, again, I want you guys to make your calls with a partner so you can see how well you've done. Do it with the same partners that you've already worked with so you can actually see what the growth has been. And then you're going to do it with someone else coming up next week, just so you know. Next week, you're getting your secondary market challenge. So I wanna make sure you guys are available and you guys are working your assets off right now. Does anybody have any questions for me before we end the call?
Yes.
Yes.
How to put into action if I'm gonna do find a real estate investor, real estate agent now, what would be the best source that I should go?
We are actually gonna be talking about that. So
Okay.
right now, get on the wholesaler lists. I don't want you doing anything more than that right now. There's a reason. There are agents that are on there, but they're not necessarily good.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start verifying that. But there are ways to do it. You got to determine who's in your market. Have you determined where in your market you're going to be targeting?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then it's time to go see who sold those deals.
Yeah, I'm going to work with my tribe leader, Anita.
There you go. Exactly.
Because
That's
she has the real
right
estate
answer.
license. She has the real estate license.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So does Sam.
Yeah, I want to ask you, she did propose to me like, she can be my agent, and for assignment deal, if I'm doing an MLS listing, for example, if I have problem with assignment, she said, just claim that you are out of state buyer. I have a real estate agent. I need her to represent me in that Dallas area.
There you go.
That solves the problem of assignment.
Yeah, it does.
Exactly right.
Yeah, how is the mechanic on that? I'm just curious.
Agents work with agents.
Okay.
That's the mechanics.
Okay.
Licensees work with licensees, broker to broker. It just makes
Okay.
it that much easier. So that's actually what we're doing here. Robin and I have done a couple deals like that right now where we're literally doing that. For the assignment stuff, like, great, she's a cash buyer, which means it could be her, any of her partners. She has to have an agent represent her in the transaction, and that's me. So therefore, the other agents don't get freaked out. That's why you need to have a good agent on your team.
So basically, she's representing me to do the assignment contract in a way. Okay, good.
Because their contract is assignable. The Texas contract, the Florida contract, there's assignability built into those contracts.
Okay.
And they're licensed to work with them.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I solved my problem on that.
Fabulous. All right, guys, great job today. I'm going to get off this thing because I got to look at a property, and I will talk to you mañana. Mwah! Bye, everybody.